What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the great folks at Nerd Tees, and welcome to week 9 of my weekly NFL pick show for the 2018-2019 NFL regular season and postseason. And interesting week last week. Interesting. The most positive thing I would say is that, look, best straight up mark all season, 11-3, so 11 correct in 14 games. We've gone 11-4, haven't gone 11-3 yet, so that's the best straight up mark of the season, hitting our stride just as the second half kicks off. 11-3 has a 76-43 with just the two pushes, or the two ties rather, not pushes, but ties. Against the spread, we broke even, 7-7 last week, 56-62-3 against the spread. Over under, almost broke even, but we had a push. So we were 6-7-1 on the over unders. Of course, had the one push. That has us 51-69 with just that one push over under this season. As they often are, the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze picks were a reflection of how the rest of the week went. Straight up, 4-0. Got all four of them. Chicago beat the Jets 24-10. Kansas City beat the Broncos 30-23. The Patriots whooped the Bills last night 25-6. And Pittsburgh beat Cleveland, nearly doubled them up, 33-18. Cleveland's a bit of an interesting case, and we'll talk about that when we get to their game. So we were straight up 4-0. Against the spread, broke even. We were 2-2. Told you to take Chicago -7. That worked out. Told you to take Kansas City -10. That did not work out. They only won by the touchdown. Told you to take the Patriots minus the 13.5. They win the game by 19. And told you to take Cleveland to cover +8. And they didn't. And in the totals, we were 2-1-1. And that's where our one push this week came from. It was actually in the platinum pick, the Pittsburgh and Cleveland game. I had you under 51 points, and it finished with exactly 51. Told you to go over 46 in Chicago, New York Jets. They only get to 34, but I did tell you to stay under 55 points in KC, Denver. They only get to 53, and stay under 44 in the Monday Night Football game last night with New England and Buffalo, and they only get to 31. Taking a look at the Bridgewater's Finest and official NFL YouTube prognosticators pick'em pools for Week 8 and overall on the season, folks, it's Gavin O'Connor's world. We're all just living in it. First of all, in the Bridgewater's Finest pool, I sit in 15th place out of 43, certainly lower than where I'd like to be, but I feel like we're starting to cook with gas and we're trending in the right direction. I just bring in some really good people making really good picks. That's the excuse I'm going to use. 655 out of 978 possible confidence points. That's a clip of 67%. It's only a few percentage points off of where I would like to be, but that still only has me in 15th place. Pulled in 93 of 105 possible confidence points in Week 8. That's a clip of 89%. Typically would be up there with the folks that are, contending to win the week. But Gavin O'Connor, like I said off the top, Gavin went unbeaten this week. 14-0. Perfect week for Gavin. 105 out of 105 possible confidence points. I don't know how good you are at math, but that's a clip of 100%. And I mean, it wasn't just Gavin. We had 7 people in the pool this week that had at least 100 out of 105 possible confidence points or better. That's pretty damn incredible. Now, Teddy Ted does remain the overall leader in that pool, 82-37 with the two ties this season, 708 out of 978 possible confidence points. That's a clip of 72%, and that is, again, 2 percentage points better than where this pace typically would be. Actually, Teddy Ted doesn't remain the overall leader. Teddy Ted becomes the overall leader. He knocks Billy B off of the throne from last week. In the NFL YouTube prognosticators pick'em pool, which isn't against the spread pick'em pool, I currently sit in 11th place out of 51 people making picks. 54 correct against the spread picks out of the 121 games played so far. That's only a 45% clip, but a lot of people have struggled against the spread this season. Week 8, I broke even. 7 of the 14 games correct, according to Yahoo's lines. That is a 50% clip. Gavin O'Connor wins Week 8 in that pool as well. Went 10-4 against the spread this week. 71% clip for the week, and that is 3 weeks in a row that Gavin has won the against the spread pool. That week was also good enough to knock J3 out of the overall lead. Gavin O'Connor takes the overall lead in the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Pick'em Pool. 63 of 121 games picked correctly against the spread, according to Yahoo's lines. That's a clip of 52%. So shout out to Teddy Ted for taking over the overall lead in my pool. But as far as the rest of it goes, man, shout out to Gavin. What a week. Let's take a peek into Fantasy Corner and see how my 8 fantasy football teams did in Week 8 action. I guess my champagne week, if you will. Only went 4-4 across the 8 teams, so, you know, treaded water. We had some successes, we had some failures, couple of close games. One went my way, one unfortunately did not. In the Professionals Dynasty Fantasy Football League, I picked up the win last week over Max Maniacs. That has me 6-2, and I have 6 consecutive wins. I'm now up in, if not first, I think second place. I'm certainly up there in the top 3. I'm pretty comfortable that I've clinched a playoff spot. I figure 5 wins will probably get it, because we got 8 teams out of 12 that make the playoffs. So I think 5 wins gets it, so I'm pretty sure I'm in. Certainly don't want to stop now. Got a Week 9 matchup coming up against Tim Brashear, Tim's crazy team. You can find Tim on the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page. It's a projected win for me right now, but obviously still have some work to do. In the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Fantasy Football League, I lost last week to Gavin. God damn it, Gavin. That loss is just my second loss on the season. I was in first place in that league. I am no longer in first place in that league. I dropped down to 6-2. I got a Week 9 matchup coming up against Ryan C, and that is a projected loss as well. I think he's a favorite by something like 10 to 15 points. So I'm really the underdog in that matchup. I've won a couple of underdog matchups this season. Let's see if I can do it again. So Max Maniacs and Gavin, thank you for the matchups in Week 8. And Tim Brashear and Ryan C, let's do the damn thing in Week 9. And as always, I'll take the opportunity at this point in the show to point out that if you go to the description of the video file on YouTube or the description of the file on iTunes or SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts, you are going to find all of my results from Week 8, all of my straight up against the spread and over-under plays for Week 9 in the NFL. You're going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest and official NFL YouTube Prognosticators Pick'em Pools, and it is never too late to do that. Get shouted out on the show. You're going to find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page. We talk football all week long. It's a fun little community. And of course, you're going to find information on our good friends at NerdTees. NerdTees.ca. Use that promo code BWFinest, and it's going to save you 15% at checkout. You're going to get the free shipping in Canada over $50. You're going to get the great conversion on the US dollar. 2 clicks of a button, all of a sudden everything's in US prices. And today's blend is watermelon, and it is probably one of my top 3 favorite blends. Cold and wet and dreary day like we have today in Nova Scotia, it just helps you feel warm again. Watermelon is an oolong-based tea. It smells incredible. It's got a great flavor, works great hot or cold. So, I mean, you can rock this as an iced tea even in the summer. Got the just right amount of sweetness, and it's an incredible blend. Nerdtees.ca. Use that promo code BWFinest. Save yourself 15% at checkout. Free shipping in Canada on any order over $50. Find yourself something to love, or find someone you love something to love. You can get it on nerdtees.ca. Short week in the NFL this week, just a baker's dozen worth of games, 13 games on the slate. A couple of real marquee offensive matchups that are going to take place in both New Orleans and New England. Let's waste no more time and let's get to it. In what will certainly not be a marquee offensive matchup, we're going to kick things off in San Francisco. The 49ers are going to play host to the now Amari Cooper-less Oakland Raiders. These two teams have combined to lose the last 9 times that they have stepped onto a football field. The 49ers, 6 consecutive losses. They're sitting at 1-7. They're in the basement of a division that includes the Arizona Cardinals, and that is inexcusable. Meanwhile, the Raiders, sporting one of the worst offenses in the AFC, traded their biggest playmaker. So that just goes to show how their season's going. Both of these teams have had 2 cracks apiece at an AFC or NFC opponent, a non-conference opponent. They've come up empty both times. Look, it's a far stretch to call either one of these offenses dynamic or dangerous, but I do think the points are going to come in this game, and that is mostly because both of these defenses are hot garbage. San Francisco, at the very least, has done a somewhat adequate job of preventing teams from moving the ball on the ground. They're kind of middle of the pack in terms of total defense, and that's really because the run defense has not been terrible. They are giving up over 100 yards a game, but they're just barely inside the top half of the league in terms of their total run defense. That is the only bright spot for either of these teams, who currently rank number 28 and number 31 out of 32 teams in terms of scoring defense. So the points that I do expect to show up in this game will probably show up purely by accident. I kind of like the Raiders here, even though they just traded away their best player. Look, they got a first-round pick for him, which was a pretty darn good return, and at least they traded him out of the AFC like they did with Khalil Mack. Now, that kind of goes against a lot of the numbers. I think from a total offense perspective, San Francisco's offense is probably a little bit better. From a total defense perspective, San Francisco's defense is probably a little bit better. Oakland has not won on the road. The Niners, they've only won one game this year, but at the very least, they did win that game at home. So why in the world am I taking the Raiders? Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. Maybe it's a gut play, maybe it's a reaction to the spread, I don't know, but I just kind of feel like Oakland somehow is going to wind up winning this football game. So clearly with a strong lack of confidence, I'm going to say I'm going to go with the Raiders this week in San Francisco to beat the 49ers. And again, maybe, like I said, it's a reaction to the line, because on the line, the Niners are favored by 3 points at home, and no, like this game should be a pick'em or a half point or maybe a point. These are two incredibly comparable football teams, even without Amari Cooper on Oakland's side. I think this line's an overreaction to the Cooper trade. I get that it's not a great spot, but we like Oakland to win, so I'm going to go Oakland +3. Total in the game, 46.5 points. I can't trust either one of these defenses to keep a game under 50. So we're going to go over on this one. Over 46.5 points in Oakland, San Francisco. Let's go to Buffalo now, where the Bills, on the short week, having played last night on Monday Night Football and getting embarrassed by a division opponent, have to welcome in the Chicago Bears. I shouldn't say embarrassed. They didn't get embarrassed. That was a really competitive game until, like, the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, the Patriots were like, why is this game close? This isn't fun anymore. And they put up 13 points in the fourth quarter, including a pick 6, and that was pretty much the end of it. But maybe it just always feels that way when you're playing the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo has scored 87 points in 8 games. This offense is, like, anemic isn't even the word. There needs to be, and maybe there is somewhere in medicine or something, a word for, like, hyper, super duper, incredibly anemic. Because, like, that's what the Bills offense is. When you are trusting an offense to either Derek Anderson, and it's nothing against Derek Anderson, but he's 35. Nothing against Derek Anderson, but when you're trusting it to either Derek Anderson or the human interception machine, it's one of those what do you expect moments. Bills are losers of 3 straight games, and yeah, they can play some defense, although the scoring defense leaves a little something to be desired, giving up 25 points a game. They can play some defense, especially in the secondary, but you know who else can play some defense? The Chicago Bears. And that's not just from a total defense perspective, that is from a scoring defense perspective. The Bears giving up just over 20 points a game, which is top 10 in the league. And in terms of the total offense, yards per game, like it's not even really competitive. They're well inside the top 10 as well. Now look, so is Buffalo. Buffalo, in fact, is a half yard per game better than Chicago is. But the scoring defenses are not comparable. It's about 5 points difference. Plus, you have a Chicago team that, while they're not setting the world on fire offensively, they are top 10 total offense, and they're scoring points, too. Meanwhile, Buffalo very much is not. To quote the great Paul Heyman, this is not a prediction, this is a spoiler. Here's exactly how this game is going to go. The Chicago Bears, who have a top 3 run defense, are going to force the Buffalo Bills to have to air the ball out to try to gain yards. When they do that, they have shit quarterbacks. So when they do that, Chicago's going to have 2 or 3 interceptions, bunch of turnovers. Buffalo's barely going to score any points in this game. Chicago's going to win this thing in a walk. Take the Chicago Bears on the road in Buffalo, especially with the Bills coming off of a short week, quote unquote. Take Chicago to beat Buffalo. Now, this line just opened up on, I believe it was Bet Online, and it opened up as Chicago minus 8.5. Take that before it's double digits, because before kickoff, it's going to be double digits. Basically, fade the Buffalo Bills until Josh Allen comes back. And it's not that Josh Allen is this huge difference maker, but Josh Allen is better than Derek Anderson. Josh Allen is better than Nathan Peterman. Josh Allen is better than anybody else the Bills have in their quarterback room right now. So until Josh Allen comes back, don't take the Bills. Total in the game is 37.5 points. I kind of have it capped right around that, mostly because of the points that I think Chicago's going to score. But I think I'm going to stick under on it. I think it's going to be a defensive matchup. You're talking about two top 10 total defenses, so yardage will be at a premium. I think I'm going to stick under on that one, even though the number is so low. Let's go under 37.5 points in Chicago-Buffalo. Let's go to Cleveland now, which not a lot of people are asking to do, where the Browns are going to play host to the Kansas City Chiefs. What a perfect week to fire your head coach and offensive coordinator. So this is going to be another one of those instances where it's just like fade this team for a few weeks until they try to start getting things figured out. The only thing Cleveland can hang their hat on right now is their defense, especially at home, is not atrocious, but they're playing one of the best offenses in football, and they're coming off of having a coaching change. So I imagine this is going to be an absolute tire fire of a football game. Take the Chiefs on the road in Cleveland. I don't have to explain that anymore, do I? Take the Chiefs on the road. Chiefs are currently also favored by 8.5 points against the spread at Cleveland. I contemplated a hedge in this one for like 1.4 seconds before I realized, oh wait, not only is Kansas City winning the vast majority of their games, they're also beating Vegas. Like, they're covering these numbers. The Chiefs are 4-0 against the spread on the road. I expected that number to be double digits. It's not. Grab it before it is. Same deal with Chicago and Buffalo. Kansas City minus the 8.5. Total in the game is 51.5 points. I mean, I have to go over on it. Kansas City might top 50 on their own here with how much they're going to possess the ball off of an offense that does not have its coordinator, nor its head coach, nor its play caller. So, like, what are they going to do this week? I don't think it's going to be much of anything. Boy, that Chiefs defense is going to look great this week. So take the over, mostly because of Kansas City, over 51.5 points in KC Cleveland. Now that those are out of the way, let's go to a competitive football game. Let's go to Washington now, where the Redskins are going to play host to the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons coming into this game off of their bye. The Skins are far and away the hottest team in the NFC East. They're 5-2. They lead the division. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They're playing really good football right now, and a lot of it has to do with their defense. Their margin of victory is only like it's less than 2 points a game, but it's the defense that's been keeping opponents down, putting the Skins in situations that they can win some of these games. Falcons are 3-4, and they're kind of on the opposite side of that coin. 3-4, they're 3 games back in the division right now. The defense has not been playing very well. 212 points against in 7 games. That's over 30 points a game. Obviously, the built-in reasoning for that, which is look at all the injuries they've had on defense. It's also clear that this offense is simply not the same without Devonta Freeman. That is no criticism of Tevin Coleman. I think he's been fine, but without Devonta Freeman, this is an entirely different team. Obviously, Keanu Neal is not coming back this season. The Falcons are still a week away from getting Deion Jones. Ricardo Allen, I don't think, is coming back this season. And the injury woes kind of continued for the Falcons as well. Senat on the defensive line, questionable at best, probably closer to doubtful. Neck injuries you don't tend to screw around with. Maybe the Falcons might get Matt Bryant back this week. I think he's still got the questionable tag on him, but like again, it's the kicker. It makes a difference, obviously. It certainly makes a difference in team morale, but the kicker is not the reason that Atlanta's struggling. Speaking of injuries, hey, the Redskins have some too. Especially in the secondary. Alexander at quarterback's got a concussion. Quentin Dunbar at cornerback has a shin injury, or like got a nerve issue in his shin. He's day to day, so he might play. But Alexander probably not going to clear concussion protocol in enough time. And then you're talking from a couple of weeks ago. What are we talking? We're talking about Apke at safety. Halsey at cornerback, he's still, like, he's on the IR, so I don't know whether he's going to be available or not. There's going to be room in that Redskins secondary for Matt Ryan to throw the football. I'm going to be honest here, though. I am leaning towards the Redskins in this game, and it's simply because I haven't seen Atlanta do it on the road yet. It's good for them, obviously, that they're coming in off their bye. They've given their players a chance to rest. That's good for them. That obviously means good things. I just haven't seen them do it on the road yet. Washington are 5-1 against NFC teams this season. I think it's just a little too much for me to go against them. So I think I got to take Washington in this one. Let's take the Redskins at home to beat the Falcons. On the line, Skins are only favored by 2 as a reflection of how close this matchup actually is, and this is legit a game that could really go either way. We like Washington to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's take the Redskins -2 at home against Atlanta. Total in the game is 47.5 points. I have this capped at a low 50. It's comfortable enough for me to say we're going to take the over. Let's go over 47.5 points in Washington, Atlanta. AFC North division game time, and these are always special. The Baltimore Ravens at home taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Baltimore has now laid an egg in back-to-back weeks. They're down to 4-4. They've lost 2 straight games. They've lost 2 games in the division so far this season. It's going to be a tough road to hoe for the Baltimore Ravens, even though this division is so close. I'm not going to sit here and say Baltimore's defense got exposed by Cam Newton and the Panthers, but I certainly didn't see 36 points against coming. I think this Ravens defense is still elite. I think this offense is still underrated, but you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. Steelers have figured it out. They've turned a corner. Steelers have won 3 consecutive games. They're 4-1 in their last 5. Yeah, they stumbled out of the gate, but we're talking about a team that's played 7 games. Average margin of victory so far this season, about 4.5 to 5 points in favor of the Steelers. Now, look, Baltimore's margin of victory has been really good too, but I just feel like Pittsburgh's turned a corner here. I got criticized in the comments last week by one blind Canadian werecat that he's a fellow prog, so I can needle a little bit. But I kind of got criticized in the comments last week for not giving Baltimore their due. And again, I feel like I've given them a ton of credit. I feel like I've talked about them a lot on this show as being like, wow, that offense has really impressed me. Wow, that defense looks dominant. Neither one of those things were true last week. Now, granted, you get to play the game at home, which is great, but now you got to play a division opponent who is red hot right now. They're the hottest team in that division. You've already lost 2 games against division opponents this year. I know it's one of those things where it's like you can't afford to lose a third one already so early, but yeah, man, I just feel Steelers in this one. Plus, you got to believe the Steelers have revenge on their mind. Remember, back early in the season, I think it might have even been week 1, the game in Pittsburgh, Baltimore in Pittsburgh, and they beat Pittsburgh by 2 possessions. You know Pittsburgh wants to give that right back to them. I think they're going to this week. I'm taking the Steelers on the road in Baltimore to beat the Ravens. On the line, Ravens are 3-point favorites at home, which means Steelers obviously 3-point dogs. We like Pittsburgh to win. Let's take Pittsburgh +3. Even if you don't like Pittsburgh to win, you might want to hedge on a very close game that might end on a last-second field goal. You might want to think about that. Pittsburgh +3 looks pretty nice to me one way or the other. Total in the game is 47 points. I personally have this capped a little bit higher than this, couple points higher. The last 10 games these teams have played head-to-head, if you would have set the total at 47, they'd be 3-6-1 on the over-under. So 6 times it would have gone under 47 and another one would have pushed. I'm kind of going against what most of the numbers say. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of points here. I got to see the Ravens defense come together and play better than they did last week, so I got to see that happen. Let's take the over in this one. We're going to go over 47 points in Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Let's go to Denver now, where the Broncos are going to be at home playing host to the Houston Texans. Now, the Texans come into this game off the long week because they played on Thursday night, but they are also suffering, obviously, from the season-ending injury to Will Fuller, who was on like 5 of my fantasy teams, and just when he was starting to break out, lose him for the season. Broncos are playing even money football at home. They're 2-2. Texans are playing even money football on the road. They're also 2-2. But one thing that the Texans are that the Broncos are not are winners of 5 straight games. Broncos are 3-5, so they're just under 500, but they've really struggled against AFC opponents. They've only won 1 game of the 5 that they've played against a team in the AFC. Denver kept up a competitive game on the road in Kansas City last week. It was only 7 points. Most people thought Kansas City was going to blow them out. That was a really tight game, and that was a good performance. But again, division opponent, you always get up for those just a little bit more. Meanwhile, Houston comfortably handled a Miami Dolphins team that, while their offense is not as good as Denver's, Denver certainly scoring more points, definitely moving the ball much better, Houston won that game very comfortably. Granted, it was in Houston. Obviously, the Will Fuller injury means a lot here. Like I said, he was just starting to turn the corner. It was great to be able to have another guy you could roll out on the opposite side of DeAndre Hopkins, maybe take some of those double teams away from Hopkins. Not having that, I do expect DeAndre Hopkins to get doubled a lot in this football game. So if that happens, if you can shut him down, Denver's might have a good shot at winning this game. But this is actually the game that I am the furthest apart from Vegas on, and it's another one that I kind of feel like Vegas might be overreacting to that injury a little bit. Especially given that Houston's got the long week to figure this out. The Houston Texans are the better football team, and I'm going to take them. Even though the game's in Denver, I'm going to take Houston in Denver to beat the Broncos. Like I was saying, on the line, Denver, 2.5-point favorite at home. Houston, 2.5-point dog. We like Houston to win, so we're going to go Houston plus the 2.5. Total in the game is 46. I got it capped right around this number, but I can see Houston's offense taking a bit more, maybe of a step back without Will Fuller, of course. Now, the two teams are a combined 6, 9, and 1 on the over-under this season, so it's a slight lean towards the under. 75% of covers experts are also on the under in this game, so I think I'll stick with the experts. Let's go under 46 points in Houston-Denver. You'll note I've only taken one home team so far. Eventually, this is really going to bite me in the ass. Let's go to Seattle now, where the Seahawks are going to play host to the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers coming into this game off of their bye. Chargers winners of 4 straight games. They are really putting the heat on the Chiefs in that division. Look, Kansas City, they're still 2 games up, but the Chargers are coming, man. 4 straight wins, and they're 5-2. Chargers have been getting the job done away from their own building. They've won 2 of their 3 games on the road, which is a good sign going into a tough building to play in. Seahawks, no slouches in their own right. That defense playing very, very well right now. Under 20 points a game allowed so far this season. They've won 2 consecutive games. Both of these teams have beaten a non-conference opponent so far this season. They're both 1-1. Seahawks, also, though, only 1-1 at home. They've played 5 road games so far. Seahawks, huge win last week in Detroit, doubled up the Lions 28-14. A really good performance on both sides of the ball for Seattle. A game like that really has to build your confidence and your momentum. A game like that at home, you understand it because it's Seattle. But to do that on the road and then to get to come home for just the 3rd time this season, Seahawks got to be feeling good. And especially Pete Carroll, look at that working for your contract. The real difference between these two teams on the defensive side comes in the secondary. Seattle does a much better job of shutting down the opponent's pass game on defense than do the Chargers. Seattle just giving up 219 yards passing per game this season. Chargers at over 255, not exactly a good position for them to be in the secondary. Run defenses, kind of similar. Both of them have sort of been struggling this year. On the offensive side here, though, the Chargers have a huge edge, not only in terms of the points they've been putting up, but the yardage they've been getting. And the vast majority of that, actually, they've played stronger on the offensive side. They've played stronger on the road than they have in their own building. This is another tight matchup, really, really tough game. Certainly, according to Vegas, this is only 1.5 on the spread. Am I going to take another friggin' road team? I kind of like the Chargers. I think I got to see somebody shut the Chargers offense down on the road before I can kind of pick against them, because again, Seattle is in position to do that, but I don't know. Especially coming off the bye, they're going to be well rested. I think this is going to be arguably, maybe low key, the game of the week. I think I'm going to take the Chargers here on the road in Seattle to upset the Seahawks. On the line, like I said, Seahawks only favored by 1.5 at home as a reflection of how close this game is. Like the Chargers to win, let's take the Chargers plus the 1.5. Total in the game is 47.5 points, and again, this is where I kind of skew to, even where Seattle's defense is markedly better. It's the situation. It's Seattle at home and the Chargers on the road. In terms of how these offenses play, Seattle averaging 27 points a game in their home games. The Chargers averaging 30 points a game in their road games. I think this could be a mid-50 despite what the line is sitting at. So we're actually going to take over the 47.5 points in the Chargers-Seahawks. Speaking of points, all right, let's get to those two marquee offensive matchups this week. The first one is in New Orleans as the Saints are going to play host to the Los Angeles Rams. Saints with a big statement win last week in Minnesota, avenging that NFC Championship loss. Who knows, that could be an NFC Championship rematch. We've obviously still got a lot of football to play, but wouldn't that be incredible if we could get a rematch of that game, which was arguably the most entertaining game of the playoffs last year, Super Bowl included. Saints win that game by 2 possessions, 30-20. You turn around and you look at the Rams, and I'm going to raise my hand. The Rams beat my Packers. The Rams survived the Packers. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the next game, which includes the Packers. But look, the Rams did their job. They won that game. They're 8-0. The Rams survived that game. Now, despite the fact that the numbers actually look pretty good for that Rams defense, like they're top 10 in terms of total defense, they're well inside the top 10 in terms of scoring defense. Those numbers look really good, but we've seen the Rams have to win some shootouts this season, and I imagine that that's exactly what this game is going to be. Like that home game against the Vikings, that's a 38-31 game. They were in Seattle. They only won that game by 2 points. Both teams got up over 30 points. I don't know that I trust that defense, despite what the numbers tell me. Todd Gurley versus Alvin Kamara could very easily be the best running back matchup in the NFL right now, maybe the best matchup that the NFL has to offer. While the Rams are no slouches in terms of the run defense, giving up just barely over 100 yards a game on the ground, the New Orleans Saints have the #1 total run defense in the NFL this season, only giving up 74 yards per game. Now, the give back there is A, they're one of only 5 teams that are allowing more than 300 yards passing per game, and B, you're still scoring points on them. I think it's entirely possible that the Green Bay Packers may have put the blueprint of how to beat the LA Rams right out there on Front Street, and the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees and Sean Payton are capable enough that they can take that blueprint, improve upon it, and do it. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints at home to hand the Rams their first loss of the season. Saints beat the Rams. On the line, the Saints are favored by 2 points at home, so we're taking them to win. It's a small price to pay, so let's take the Saints -2. Total in the game is 60 points, and that is incredible to me. I'm pretty sure it's the first 60-point total that we've seen this season. I could be wrong in saying that, but I think it is. So since 60 obviously is a big number, I went through every single game this season to see, like, my God, 60's got to be ridiculous. I mean, how many games even get to 60 points? And the results were actually kind of interesting. We've played 121 football games in the NFL this season. 21 of them have gone 60 points or over. That's a clip of 17%. It seems small, but it's really not. 17% over 60 points total. Basically what I'm saying is defenses should be ashamed of themselves. So then I went back and I thought, I wonder how many of those games involved either the Saints or the Rams. And I did that math, and it was 5 of them. 5 of the 21 games involved one of these two teams. That's 24%. So it's almost 1 in every 4 of those 60-point games involved one of these two teams. It's 2 top 3 scoring offenses in the NFL. The defenses, again, I think the Rams defense are not as good as the numbers are telling me. The Saints defense hasn't been great from a scoring perspective this season. Let's take it. It seems ridiculous, but we're going to go over 60 points in the Rams and the Saints. And the last game we're going to look at before we get to the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze picks for week 9 sees the New England Patriots playing host to the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Patriots coming into this game off the short week, having just played last night on the road on Monday Night Football, but the Packers come into this game on back-to-back road games, having lost that 2-point decision in Los Angeles against the Rams in week 8. So look, I'm going to get this out of the way right here. The Green Bay Packers lost to the Rams. Again, they're my Packers, they're my team. In fact, I'm going to reach over right here because I didn't have my hat on. I'm going to put my hat on while I say this. Very close game. Really put the Rams in jeopardy, which was awesome. And then they screwed themselves. Like, there's no other way to say it. They screwed themselves on 3 critical plays. Mike McCarthy deciding not to challenge whether or not Sam Shields stepped on the goal line. If it's that close, look, it was the last, I think, 2 or 3 minutes of the first half. You only had the 1 timeout left. You're probably not going to use it with that much time left on the clock. Challenge it. Whatever. It's one timeout. I realize challenges are important. I actually think he might have stepped on the line, and I think if you would have gotten real close up on that, I get the feeling that's a challenge you would have won. So that was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is inside your own 1-yard line, calling a run play. I realize if you call a pass play and you get called for holding or something like that, it's a safety anyway. But trying to run the ball, especially just a halfback plunge up the middle, if you try to run that, you're also asking for a safety because you're asking to have what happened happen, which is you get tackled behind the line, boom, it's a safety, it's 2 points on the board, and you give up possession. Oh, and it's the Rams, so then they also put up a touchdown, 8 points on the board directly from poor decision-making from the coach. So not challenging whether he stepped on the line, that was mistake number 1. Calling a run play rather than a pass play with Aaron friggin' Rodgers inside your 1-yard line, that was mistake number 2. Mistake number 3, Ty. Timo. Why? Why would you not just take the touchback? Why would you not just save time on the clock for Aaron goddamn Rodgers? Why would you not just eat that up? Just take it. They've given you a gift with the touchback. They've given you more time on the clock when you're trailing in a game. Why would you run the ball off of the goal line? Because when you do that, you run the risk, however remote, of that happening, which is you get hit, you fumble the ball, and the game is over. Why anyone would make the active decision to take the ball out of the hands of one of the best quarterbacks of this generation and try to do it all yourself by running up the middle. Apparently running up the middle was just the kryptonite of the Green Bay Packers in this game. Why would you make that decision? I raise my hand. The Green Bay Packers should have beaten the Rams last week. And I would say, I would put money on this, in fact. If you change any one of those 3 decisions, this is why football is such a game of inches. If you change any of those 3 decisions, Green Bay wins that football game. But you can't do that. And this is the point where I take my hat off. You can't live in the past. You can't change those decisions. They didn't win the football game. Now they got to go to Gillette and play the Patriots, who have absolutely turned a corner. The Bills last night made the Patriots defense look like the '85 Bears. They looked incredible in that football game. Obviously, the degree of competition is taking a bit of an uptick this week. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's at full power. You got Randall Cobb back. He looks like he's at full power. You've got the emergence of Marquez Valdez-Scantling as a really dangerous, I would say, slot receiver, 3rd, 4th receiver on this team. I think this kid's going to be really good. Yet Aaron Jones running the football pretty well. 12 carries for 86 yards, found the end zone. And the Packers defense, despite the fact that they did give up 29 points, the Packers defense looked good in that football game. When you hold the Rams under 30, you've done something at least a little bit special. And I think the Packers defense is as good now as it has been at any point in the last 4 or 5 years. The run defense still leaves something to be desired, but that secondary is top 5 in total defense. The really tough thing to do with back-to-back road games is win back-to-back road games. Maybe there's a reason that Green Bay lost last week. Maybe I'm just pathological. Maybe I'm just psychotic. But maybe there's a reason that they lost that game last week. Maybe the reason was to go into Gillette Stadium, just the second time ever that Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady will play each other as starting quarterbacks. Maybe the reason was to go in and beat Brady in Gillette. Rodgers has beaten Brady once. That was in Lambeau. Totally different story, but he's done it. I think he does it twice. Oh, this goes against the numbers, but y'all knew what I was going to do the second I started talking about this game. I'm taking the Packers on the road in Gillette. It goes against my better judgment. It goes against the numbers, but I don't care. I feel it. I feel it in my bones. I got the Packers with the upset of the week. Packers beat the Patriots. On the line, the Patriots are 6.5-point favorites at home. We've talked obviously extensively about Aaron Rodgers as an underdog, especially a big underdog. Obviously, I like the Packers to win, so I'm taking the Packers plus 6.5. I think this is a game you hedge one way or the other. Even if the Packers lose, I think this is going to be just like the LA game, going to be very, very close at the end of the game. 6.5 points, I think, is way too many. Hedge it one way or the other. Total in the game is 57.5 points. It's a big total. I capped it somewhere right here around 57, 58, something like that. And two great offenses, two average defenses. So let's take the over on it. Let's go over the 57.5 points. Let's expect a shootout in Green Bay, New England. All right, folks, platinum, gold, silver, and bronze picks for week 9 in the NFL. We start at the bottom, as always, with the bronze pick, where I'm 5-3 straight up, 4-3-1 against the spread, only 2-6 on the over-under. That sees the Miami Dolphins playing host to the New York Jets, an AFC East matchup, and it's two teams going in opposite directions, at least in terms of their situations coming into this game. That being, Miami's coming in off the long week. They played on Thursday. They lost that game. The Jets are on back-to-back roadies. Jets lost last week as well. Both of these teams lost big. The game wasn't particularly competitive either way. What was it? The Jets lost by 14. The Dolphins failed to cover plus 7.5. So, I mean, it was not a good game either way around for either one of these two teams. That said, one of these teams is 3-1 at home. That's the Miami Dolphins. Another one of these teams is 1-3 on the road. That's the New York Jets. One of these teams already has a win inside the division. That's the Miami Dolphins. One of these teams does not have a win inside the division. That's the New York Jets. Both of the teams are on 2-game losing streaks, so it's not like one is really on fire and the other one is not. I just like the Dolphins this week. I think there's enough going in the Dolphins' favor, especially considering the game is at home. Whether it's Tannehill or whether it's Osweiler or whether it's whoever else could play quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, I think the Dolphins get it done this week. So let's take Miami at home to beat the Jets. On the line, Dolphins are favored by 3 points at home. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. It is the full field goal, but that's fine. We're going to take Miami -3. Total in the game is 45 points, and this is the one that I actually am the furthest apart on, I think, with Vegas. Like, I capped this game at a mid 50, not a mid 40. So we're going to go over that total in a big, bad way. Dolphins win straight up. We're going to hammer the Dolphins -3 against the spread. Over 45 points. That is the bronze pick. My silver pick, where I'm 6-2 straight up, but only 3-5 both against the spread and over-under, sees the Minnesota Vikings at home playing host to the Detroit Lions. Again, with the NFC North division so tight, like Chicago's leading it right now, but that's only because they've got 4 wins in 7 games, whereas the Vikings have 4 wins in 8. Both of these teams also coming off of losses last week. Minnesota losing, Detroit losing. Obviously, Detroit losing that, not an embarrassing game, but man, 2 full possessions to a team that doesn't travel very well in your own building. Not exactly a good look. Minnesota lost, but I mean, it was against the Saints. You know, that happens. A lot of teams are losing to the Saints this year. Vikings defense is obviously not what anybody thought it was going to be this season. Like, that defense needs to play better. It just plain needs to play better. And it kind of looked like Detroit maybe kind of had it figured out a little bit, and then they go out and they have that absolute stinker against the Seahawks last week. So I have my doubts. I have my reservations about whether they have it figured out, and I have my reservations about whether they can go into Minnesota and hang a loss on the Vikings. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to take the Vikings in this one. Let's go Minnesota at home to beat Detroit. On the line, Minnesota favored by 5 points at home. Originally, I kind of had this, but it was just a lean towards Minnesota -5. I think that's too many points. Despite the fact that Detroit is under 500 away from their own building, they are 3-0 against the spread on the road this season. Minnesota just 1-3 at home. So I think I'm actually going to hedge there, and we're going to go Detroit plus the 5 points. Total in the game is 50.5. I had this capped somewhere around a low 50, so it's a pretty good number. The two teams in their last 10 head-to-head matchups, obviously they play twice a year being in the same division, the last 10 head-to-head matchups, so the last 5 years worth of games. If you would have put the total in those games at 50.5, which is what it is right now, the over-under would be 2-8. So 8 times out of the last 10, they would have gone under this total. Let's do that. Let's kind of lean that way. Let's expect a defensive battle in this one. We're going to go under 50.5. So, like the Vikings at home to beat the Lions, we're going to hedge our bets. We're going to take Detroit plus 5 against the spread in a game that stays under 50.5 points. That is your silver pick. My gold pick, where I'm a sparkling 7-1 straight up, 4-4 against the spread, and 5-3 on the total. The only real positive note over under this season sees the Dallas Cowboys playing at home against the Tennessee Titans. Both of these teams come into this game off of their bye, so they should be well rested. Dallas comes into this game with a shiny new toy at wide receiver in Amari Cooper. So not only has Cooper had the bye week to come in here and try to learn a little bit of the offense, but this also is a game that happens on Monday Night Football, so there's that little bit of extra time as well, just to get himself acclimatized. That's not to say that I think he's going to have an incredible, impactful game immediately, but look, that was a really good trade for Dallas. Now look, in saying that, I realize they gave up their first-round pick in order to do that. But look, Dallas is not out of this thing. They're 2 games back in the division. I get that. But they haven't lost a game at home yet. Of course, they haven't won a game on the road. But they haven't lost at home. And they've still got a shot here. Like, Philly is not running away with things like you thought they were. Washington is certainly in there, but their offense is not very good. Their offense is pretty darn comparable with yours. Dallas absolutely sees a path where they could still win this division. And going out and getting a guy like Amari Cooper to be that impact player on offense, I think it was a savvy move. Titans are 3-4. The wheels kind of feel like they've fallen off of this thing a little bit. That defense plays incredibly well. It's under 20 points a game, but the offense, it's the offense, man. They're like 15 points a game. They're one of the worst scoring offenses in the NFL right now. Their margin of victory right now is -3, despite the fact that they're only 1 game under 500. They've only won 1 game on the road. They're going into a building where Dallas has not lost yet this season. I just don't feel like it's a good spot for Tennessee, despite the fact that they're going to come in well rested off the bye. I'm on Dallas here all day. Let's take the Cowboys at home to beat Tennessee. On the line, Dallas favored by just under a touchdown in this game. Dallas minus the 6.5 points. That line is another overreaction to the Amari Cooper trade, but I feel like it's one that could actually work out. I did originally feel like this was too many points. The Titans are also 4-1 against the spread this season as an underdog, but again, Dallas just hasn't lost at home yet this year. They play really well at home, both sides of the football. I actually kind of feel like Dallas is going to cover this one. So I'm going to go Dallas minus the 6.5 points at home against the Titans. Total in the game is 41 points. I've got it capped well below this, so I'm going to stick under even though I like Dallas to cover. So, Dallas wins the game straight up. We're going to hammer the Cowboys -6.5 against the spread in a game that stays under 41 points. That is your gold pick. And the platinum pick, where I'm 6-2 straight up this season, only 3-5 against the spread, and 3-4-1 on the over-under, sees the Carolina Panthers at home taking on the Tampa Bay Bucks. Bucks come into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games. There's obviously a division matchup of the NFC South, 5-2 Panthers, 3-4 Bucks. The Bucks lost last week. Panthers have won 2 consecutive games. They are 4-0 at home this season. They have lost their only division game so far this year. This is only division game number 2. But again, Panthers have not been touched at home yet. They've been put in jeopardy a time or two. But look, ultimately, it's about winning the football game. I like the Panthers to do that this week, especially against a team that has struggled on the road. Fitzmagic has been named the starting quarterback for Week 9. But I raise my hand one more time and say, Fitzmagic has not happened against a good defense. Far be it from me to sound like a hater, but Fitzmagic has not happened against a good secondary all season. The best secondary Fitzpatrick has played is Philly, who are bottom half of the league versus the pass. Huge performances come against 3 of the bottom 5 ranked secondaries in the NFL. That being said, Fitzpatrick deserves to be rostered in every fantasy league out there. Baby lotion soft schedule from now until the end of the season. Down the stretch of the fantasy season, Fitzpatrick gets the Panthers twice, including this week, the Skins, the Giants, the Niners, and the Saints in Week 14, which is Week 1 of most fantasy football playoffs. None of them rank inside the top 15 in terms of fewest fantasy points against to quarterbacks. Get him rostered if possible. So, that's a long way of saying you can add Ryan Fitzpatrick in fantasy all you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to perform this week to the point that the Bucks would beat the Panthers. I'm going to take Carolina at home to beat Tampa Bay, especially considering what they literally just did to a much better football team at home last week. On the line, Panthers are favored by a full touchdown at home. Kind of feels like too many for me. If Fitzmagic is going to happen, it could happen in terms of a backdoor cover of this number. The Bucks, to their credit, are 1-0 against the spread this season on the road as an underdog of this total. The Panthers have not covered at home as a favorite of this total. They're 0-1 so far this season. I just feel like it's too many points. I think this is a relatively close division game, so we're going to go with the Bucks plus the 7 points. That might be a nice teaser candidate for you. Total in the game is set at 54 points. I kind of cap it just a tiniest bit higher than this. The two teams are combined 10-4 on the over-under this season. That's a pretty strong lean towards the over. So let's go that way. Let's take over 54 points. So Panthers win straight up at home against the Bucks, but I'm taking the Bucks plus 7 against the spread, a game that goes over 54 points. That is your platinum pick. All right, folks, those are your straight up against the spread and over-under plays for Week 9 of the 2018 NFL season. It is time now for the patented comment of the week, and the comment of the week goes to the blind Canadian cat who I mentioned earlier, but it's not for the comment you think. His comment of the week is actually a response to another one of his comments from earlier in the week, so I'm just going to read them all. So basically, the blind Canadian cat here is talking about the Colts and Raiders, saying only reason Colts versus Raiders game goes over 50 is if the Colts drop 47 minimum. Spoilers, they didn't. They dropped 42. Raiders ain't scoring diddly squat. Spoilers, they did. They scored 28. No run game, and your pass catchers are a 40-year-old ex-Rogers boy toy and Wiz Khalifa's partner in quote-unquote crime. Under by a long shot. Feel free to roast me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to roast you, but I mean, the game got to 70 points. And I certainly didn't say it was going to get to 70, but I did feel like it was going to go over the point total. What was the point total again? Was it 50? 50 exactly? So, you know, I just felt like that game was going to go over because the defenses are not, certain with Oakland, really bad. And with Indy, you know, they're better than they used to be, I guess. So that's just kind of why I thought it was going to go over 50. I certainly didn't call 70, and I'm not exactly going to roast you for it, man. Although his response to it is really what gets me. It says, "Oi, am I going to hear it next week?" Well, you heard it a little bit, man, but it was, at the very least, it comes from a place of love. Yours is the comment of the week from the Week 8 video. All right, folks, Week 9 episode is in the books. A little bit longer than I actually expected it to be, given that there were only 13 games, but let's see how short I can cut this bad boy down. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled, as always, by the great folks at NerdTees, nerdtees.ca, promo code BWFinest, saves 15% at checkout, free shipping in Canada over $50. It's a great deal. Christmas is coming. All kinds of great stuff on there. Enjoy the games in Week 9, especially those couple of just what should be absolute offensive showcases in what has been an offensive season. Enjoy the games in Week 9. We'll see you again in Week 10, and we're just a couple of days away from Movember.